Quickly, let's go over SPY, QQQ, and IWM, and then we'll talk about the charts that I shared, and also probably talk about some trade ideas for this week. Um, First one, let me start off SPY on the weekly time frame. We basically broke down. There's no doubt about that, right? Like we basically broke down on the weekly time frame, which is pretty significant, I would say, to create some kind of a downtrend. Next big target here is 505, and under that is 490. 480 retest, which is basically the previous all-time high. I wouldn't be very very bearish on that front as well. I would really appreciate a retest of that 480 level, which basically gives me another opportunity to go long. We did sell some covered calls on Amazon. I did not sell covered calls on Google yet. I'll do that after earnings, maybe during the earnings week or so. We'll figure out what to do. Just like last time, we sold CSPs on Google. We sold covered calls on Google. We made money both sides, we basically ate all the premiums on the puts. We basically ate all the premiums on the calls, and we still own our shares, which is pretty amazing. Given that we picked them up at 121 last year again, after we sold off at 130. We called off at 130, which it's fine, but right now, looking at SPY on the weekly time frame, it looks really bad. Probably a retest of 505 is what I'm expecting. Obviously, this is a weekly time frame chart. I'm not saying we'll see 505 next week, which is also possible. I'm not denying the fact that it is not possible next week. I'm just saying these are not your weekly time frame is not for day-to-day trading. It is basically if you want to take some swings out into probably into June. You can probably look for 500 puts on SPY as your hedge play as well, because we did break down. Another very interesting setup would be a retest of this trend line here, right? We blew through that, we broke down. Retesting this trend line is where you would want to pull that hedge off. Not right here. Probably a retest here earlier in the week is something that you can look for. We'll see what happens. We haven't seen more than two red weekly candles in quite some time. This is the last time we saw in March first week and the March second week. We did see some increasing volume where we thought we would see some correction, but then we just ripped right back higher. So this is another attempt, but this time a trend line was broken down. So we'll see what happens here. 505 and 480 and 490, 480. These are your targets lower. Here on the weekly time frame. Obviously, this is not for not targets for next week. These are for something that you want to look out for quarter over quarter. So those are your targets there. Let's quickly go on to the week onto the 65-minute time frame, where we track gaps. We look for our executable points on the index. Here in SPY, if 512 is broken to the upside tomorrow, we probably will see 51430 and 517 again earlier in the week. If we cannot break 512, we'll probably see the breakdown of 50850 and the trend line here, and the bull gap here. I think the bull gap here fill will be a little bit more interesting and will be a buy the dip scenario for me, where you see the bull gap fill, and then we'll probably make a lower high scenario. So what I mean by a lower high scenario here is, if you see what's happening in the micro term sense, there is a high, there is a low, there is a lower high, there is a lower low, there is a lower high, there is a lower low, there's a lower high, there is a lower low. So we'll probably see a lower high somewhere around here or here, where the bear gap will act as resistance, right? So we'll probably see a lower high there, or here or there, and then we'll head back lower low. We'll probably create a lower low like that, and fill this bull gap as well, and then probably head right back higher. right? So I'm not going to say, oh, you know what, we'll fill this bull gap here and then we'll head back all the way to all-time highs. That's not going to happen there. This is the micro term sense, or the short term sense. We are creating lower highs and lower lows. So understand that we are creating a trend here. We are creating a trend which is lower here. So you want to be a little bit more cautious on staying in calls for long. You don't want to position yourself in long calls on a bi-weekly or a weekly basis and try to go after something. If you want to do something like that, do it with profits, do it with roll-ups. It's totally fine. Like look at Apple. If you're looking at Apple, how Apple looks, pretty good. But on SPY, you don't want to do that. On a general market sense, you don't want to do that. We are creating a sense of a lower high and a lower low. But also, this is something that will be very useful in a short-term basis to also make a lot of money, because once you start drawing trend lines, you are basically creating a nice little trend, right? Like there's this trend that's happening, um, which is basically lower highs and lower lows, like and you can probably draw another trend line right here. Basically you are trying to assess where your lower highs and lower lows will break out to shift the momentum towards the upside. So you are creating you are basically waiting for this trend line to break to go long, and when this trend line breaks, you have a very high risk reward trade that will set up for you to perfectly swing and get some very good gains, actually 2x 3x kind of positions that will be opening up to swing once you see that. Right now things look a little grim for the bulls. We are definitely creating that lower highs and lower lows in the short term sense. Bears are showing some strength in the short term, a micro to short term sense as well. But yeah, going into this week, I'm still bearish. You definitely would want to see this trend line and this trend line to break. Well, first target would be this trend line here. But the bear gap is right there, so I would want a little bit more confirmation towards 520. Once 520 breaks, you can probably target all-time highs and even higher after that, and there's quite a bit of move that you can capture after 520 kind of breaks to the upside. So right now a little bit bearish. I'm not saying, okay, you know what, go guns blazing, put everything in the market or things like that. We are definitely seeing some rotation. We did see how Apple was working out last week. Before that was Meta, before that was something else. So use those stocks which are showing that relative strength and try to play them out and make some good money. This week, starting off is going to be a little bit more bearish, just because there's a bounce. Don't expect it to continue on, like unless and until these trend lines break. Make sure to keep these trend lines in watch as well. So anything to the upside, you are looking at 512, 514, 30 and 517 to the upside earlier in the week. Anything lower in the week is 508.50, and the bull gap fell right under. What is a bull gap here? This one here, this green bar here, the green body here is what is a bull gap. If we are bear flagging, if we are doing something like let me show you. Yeah, all these are bear flags, but then they kind of broke out higher. So there's nothing much that I can show you here. But if we are creating, let me show you that. If you are basically creating something like that, and sitting around there with the price action, then we'll probably look for 505 as the potential target this week as well. So these are your two levels that you want to look for on the downside: 508.50 and the bull gap fill, and 505. Anything to the upside, you need 512, 514 and 517. These are the three levels that you want to look for earlier in the week towards the upside.